Save the Semantics, episode 340. It is September 15th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Monday afternoon/evening. Weather update. It is still hot. I thought I felt a breeze coming around the corner, and I was like, we're finally leading into fall. No. No. California weather had some other plans. It is still fairly warm, at least where I'm at. And looking ahead, it does not look like it's going to be cooling down, at least for the foreseeable future, at least for the next week or so. Maybe things fluctuate, things change or whatever. But yeah, for the time being, it's still kind of warm, which was kind of expected. I think August, September, at least over here, is usually the warmest times of the year, which I never am a fan of, because it's sort of like the delaying of the satisfaction of being able to enjoy fall. But it is what it is, There's weathers that are far worse than where I'm at. Had a nice little weekend. I know I recorded last on Saturday, I believe. Just kind of an update there, but I'd say I had a fairly good weekend overall. Was able to catch up and play a good amount of games. I talked a bit about the Donkey Kong Bonanza demo. Obviously The Witcher. I'm still making my way through that. I did complete the Heart of Stone DLC, which I'll talk about in a little bit, because I have some thoughts that I want to get into, and I started like the very beginning portion of Blood and Wine, which seems to be quite the departure in a good way. The departure in terms of locale, maybe even tone of the game from the base game. So I'm excited. Like, that just seems like a very different just journey experience overall, a very different narrative, it seems like. So looking forward to that. Might play a little bit tonight. I'll see how much time I have. But yeah, that's kind of currently where things are at. Trails in the Sky, first chapter, is going to be coming out later this week, which is awesome. I think what I'm going to do, I'll probably pick up, and I probably already mentioned this before, but I think I'm going to pick up the physical version. So I'm going to get the Switch 1 edition of the game, and then have it upgraded to the Switch 2 version when I, install it onto my Switch 2. So I think the upgrade pack is either free or it's like $1 or something like that. So that's pretty nice. But I would like to get into that. And there's been rumors about there being a remake for the second game in the series as well, second chapter, which is great news. I would love to be able to play, kind of the remastered versions of the original Trails games on a modern console. Like, I have the option, if I really wanted to play the games on PC, on my laptop, which I have. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to play on console, right? And the fact that I have, a Switch and Switch 2, I think makes it a lot easier. And that is sort of like my preferred, gaming method. But if I'm not able to, if they don't go through with the method of remastering some of the older games in the series, like, it's okay. I have the option. If I really love my experience with this Trails game, which so far I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's super fun. It feels like, it feels very much in line with JRPGs, but I think the element of just kind of the combat system especially, and the potential for where this story can kind of go has me really excited. And yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about it. So it's like, and so far the demo has given me a pretty good preview of the game. So I think I'm in for at least the very first game, and we'll kind of see, how that sort of goes through the rest. But I'm assuming if this game hooks me, then I'll maybe be a part of the series now, and be, entrenched in all of that. So, but we'll see how that goes. But my intention is to pick it up sometime soon. I don't know if I'll do. I might just like have it, be sent to. Maybe I'll just order off of like Amazon or something like that, or I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up somewhere for the fun of it. I was thinking like the last time I went and picked up a physical version of a game was actually for Xenoblade X, and I made it a little bit of an occasion. It came, I remember it came with like this like metal sheet for X, which was kind of like, this is like absolutely nothing. It is just like, it is nothing. It is just like a metal sheet with with like the cover art printed on it, and there's like nothing else. It is just such a low kind of like extra piece to get from it. I don't think Falcom is necessarily offering anything by ordering like a version of the game from anywhere, so just get the game itself. I do like the little trinkets and stuff like that. I do remember for Echoes of Wisdom when it came out, it came with like a little diorama, which is kind of cute. But I don't expect that to happen. I think it's really going to be only for like the first party games that kind of get that treatment, or if you pay a little extra for something. I don't know if Trails is really known to have that kind of thing, but who knows? I mean, it's a Japanese game, so I'm sure there's like some other stuff that comes with maybe extra art pieces and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll try to get that. I'll probably order it this week, and then depending on when it gets shipped, I'll pick it up. But I'll as I kind of work my way through the last Witcher DLC, it will kind of depend on when I play the Trails next. But it's coming up. I feel pretty good about wanting to kind of dive into it. I think I know that my sort of plan that I sort of laid out in a way, or sort of the idea of what I kind of have wanted to do, is to, break up maybe some of the longer games, break it up with a bit more of a shorter game. But there hasn't really been anything that's come to mind of a game that's like a, shorter, and a bit more of like a different experience it's really caught my attention. So it's possible I might get it, I might just like play some other games here and there as the games that I already have, to sort of, provide sort of like an intermission period, if you want to call it that, between The Witcher 3 and Trails. But I mean, I enjoyed the demo so much that I'm honestly just willing to just kind of jump into it right after I beat The Witcher. But I'll see kind of how I feel, because the DLC, Blood and Wine, is supposedly pretty lengthy. So, and I'm perfectly fine taking my time with it. So, depending on how I feel, like I'm always like whatever, changing my plans and changing my whatever my gaming schedule is, if you want to call it that. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. I feel pretty good about wanting to play Trails. I think with Donkey Kong, I as I was sort of like thinking about it, and after playing a little bit of the demo and then kind of going through it again, because you have like a 30-minute play period, and then once you reach like a certain point in the game, it's like, this is the end of the demo, thanks for playing. As much as I can like look at the game and see how fun it looks, I think the gameplay aspect of it, where it's a huge kind of like collectathon sort of game, where you're going around and collecting all of these different types of, items and that kind of thing, collecting gold, fossils, these like gems and that kind of thing. It's just not really like pulling me right now. Like it's not exactly the gameplay that I'm really looking for necessarily. I mean, if you look at other, I've never been like someone who's played a ton of 3D platformers. I remember I played Spyro way back in the day at some, I don't know, it was like someplace somewhere, like someone had like the original Spyro trilogy or something like that, and I played it on their like PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1. I don't remember which. I think it's PlayStation 2. And that was like my earliest experience with 3D platformers, I think. And then beyond that, like I really only played Mario Odyssey, which I loved. But I don't know. I think it's just it's a different style of gameplay. There is like such a emphasis with Donkey Kong Bonanza of just kind of like destroying the environment and just bulldozing through everything, which I think can be fun. It's just not. I don't know. I think that type of like mindless action a little bit doesn't exactly. I don't know. It doesn't really like click with me right now. Maybe it's something that I would be interested in playing in the future, but it just feels a little too, I don't know. It feels a little too, I don't know, less, you're not really, you're just kind of like gaming for the sake of gaming, you know what I mean? Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do want to think a little bit too. I think I have my games where I'm not, where I'm just kind of like shutting my brain off and whatever, and just playing kind of like instinctually, like, Rocket League and that kind of thing. But even with Rocket League, there is like some form of like thinking about, how do I want to maneuver my car to like, get a nice shot, or, am I in a good spot placement to block a shot on goal? Like those are kinds of things. And I'm not saying that, obviously that level of logic can absolutely be applied to Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? Like I'm sure there's ways it's like, how am I going to get to this? How am I going to get to this item? Like what kind of level of platforming is it going to take for me to get to this item? And I know during the Donkey Kong Direct, they also showed, instances of like, there's some like creative like puzzles that you can do, within the levels themselves. So that's not to say that you're not using a brain. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think it's just more so like, I don't know. It's just like the main gameplay is not exactly, it's not exactly drawing me in at this point. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just not clicking with me for some reason. I have no idea how to really, how to exactly phrase it, but it's just not like working for me. Sometimes like I don't have the exact articulate words to describe why I may or may not like something, but it just happens to be that it's just not like working for me right now. Like I might like it in the future. I mean, I loved Odyssey and I had a ton of fun with it. And if it's made by the same team, I'm sure that I'll love this one just the same. But it's just like I don't have like the strongest desire to play it right now, but it looks fun. It looks like a lot of fun. It has me kind of thinking too, kind of games with like a similar thing where, you're just sort of the main mechanic, the main gameplay is just kind of like you're just going through and there's not really a lot of thought and, a lot of, I don't know, there's not like, you don't need to get to like this higher level of thinking where you're trying to, I don't know, you're trying to like optimize things or whatever. You're just like gaming, you know what I mean? I don't know how else to put it. And the other game type that kind of comes to mind are the Warriors games or the Musou games where you're just like hacking down just like hundreds and thousands of enemies, It's just like button mashing kind of thing. And I think that maybe that's sort of it. Like I'm just like, I think there is like a level to button mashing where you can have fun with it. Like obviously people enjoy these types of games. It's just like, I don't know, like it just never really worked for me. There are games where it seems really appealing because of the kind of the source material, where it's like, Fire Emblem like Three Hopes is that type of game. Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, like the other Fire Emblem Warriors games, like these types of games where the IP or whatever is a lot of fun. There's a lot of extra side content. There's maybe some story content as well, especially in the case of like Three Hopes. But just like if the main gameplay aspect of it is not appealing to me, where you're just like hacking and slashing for like hundreds of hours, it seems like it just doesn't really appeal to me. Like I think like there is so much in those games. Like there is so much like additional stuff in those games that I'm sure I would enjoy. In relation to the story, there might be some added character interactions that we might not see in the original base games. Something like Age of like Imprisonment or Age of Calamity, like those two, the two kind of Zelda spin-offs. It's like, okay, cool. There might be some cool stuff in there, but it's not. It's like in order to get to there, you have to kind of go through the game itself, which I'm just not interested in. So, I haven't really played those types of games where it's just fervorous action combat. You know what I mean? With not exactly a ton to, there's not really a lot of like strategy involved necessarily. Yeah, it hasn't really clicked with me. And it's that's kind of where maybe I'm like missing out on some games, but honestly at this point I'm like, it's okay. Like I've already have talked about in length about how I can't play every single game that exists out there, and I'm not missing out like on a ton of stuff on these other games. It's just like, yeah, this just hasn't really worked for me. And I think some of those gameplay elements where you're just kind of like mindlessly going through a level or going through enemies has never really appealed to me like a ton. So I think maybe there's some kind of connection there of the type of game that I'm just not personally interested in. Again, maybe in the future I'll pick up, and most likely in the future I'll pick up Bonanza. But I think just for right now, it's just not. Yeah, I'm just not really feeling it. Let's talk about The Witcher 3. So earlier this kind of past weekend, I beat the DLC Heart of Stone, and I thought it was excellent. Like when it got to the ending kind of, and then sort of rolled credits, like I kind of wanted to like stand up and clap. It would have been so cringy to do that just by myself, but I was feeling that. Like it was really well done. I thought it was just like super. It was just super well done. I don't know, like I'll try to kind of, walk through my thoughts, but I felt that because it is a much more compact story, where it's focusing on these like few characters, and kind of their past histories, and how you kind of end up sort of resolving it. Whereas in the base game, it goes from focusing on particular characters, but also kind of trying to canvas this larger world threat at the end of the game. I think it sort of is less intimate in the way it portrays its characters. You do get a good sense of the sort of the main character's struggles and that kind of thing, but I do think that some of the dramatic elements are maybe a bit lost in the more spectacle that you get towards like the end of the game. You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, while you can kind of understand these like personal characters like plight and stuff, the just how big things got, like you kind of like lose a little bit of the you lose a little bit of that connection that you might have with these characters, because like the issues that they deal with is like so big, it's like you can't even wrap your head around it. Like you can sympathize with them, absolutely, but oftentimes it feels a little too, or not oftentimes, but within the kind of the base game, it feels a little bit, you know, I don't know, maybe a little diluted is the right word. And then also, I think the biggest thing I would say, I would argue, where honestly, I think as like a package, as like a, you know, if you look at it from just like a story based perspective, I actually think the DLC is really strong in the way that it kind of presents itself. One, it's like such a huge kind of like, it is just like this like incredible, just like adventurous tale where there's just like, it goes from set piece to set piece to set piece, and it ends off on this really just like conclusive tone where you're kind of like, you figure out all the things that have been happening, you kind of like wrap up all these mysteries, and you kind of like tackle the issue firsthand, where like it makes sense. It ends off on a very satisfying note. It's not like this like happy ending. There's this kind of, I mean, I think might be different endings depending on what you ultimately end up choosing to do. But there's not like this like fully satisfying conclusion. Like there's kind of the ending that I got, at least, was kind of this like bittersweet ending, where there's like kind of this like realization that comes with certain characters, and kind of like coming to terms with the actions that they might have had, and having to kind of live with those decisions, right? I think it's a very strong ending, and kind of like the ending shot of Geralt looking at like the sunset is just like perfect. It's perfect. So I think having, you know, just having a bit more of this like just like this more compact experience with the story, and really honing in on like this one character, or I guess maybe like a couple characters really, I think made a huge difference in being able to understand their plight, you know, get a better sense of their character, and you know who they are and how they became the way they have, is really well done. I think I sort of, you know, said this earlier, and also when I last recorded, but just like, I think the biggest thing is really the pacing. I think that's like the biggest thing between the base game. Like, while, you know, the base game is awesome, like it's excellent, you know, it's an incredible game, just the, you know, the base game by itself. But I think when you are like concentrating specifically on this one story, I think you're really able to delve in a lot deeper, which you kind of literally do in some instances of the story, where you like go back into this person's memories, and you're kind of like trying to piece together some things. Like it's really well done. So it feels a lot more like personalized when you're trying to, you know, get to better understand certain people in this DLC versus maybe the base game. Like, I love, you know, Ciri's kind of like the emotional kind of, the main sort of emotional focus in the base game. I love her character, but I do think that we still, you know, we do know a good amount about her. Absolutely. Like, we know her history. We understand like why she feels slighted, and why she feels, you know, she's like unable to kind of like make her own decisions and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, that's kind of like the main emotional and you know, kind of the main sort of thrust and kind of the obstacle between Geralt and her, and kind of their sort of relationship. But I still feel like we could have done a little bit more to understand her character. I think we could have done you know, we could have taken like a little bit more time to, you know, kind of like enjoy her presence. I do think, like, being able to control her and play with her, like in those like other side stories, where you're like interspersing her, her past, and what she was doing before Geralt kind of like stumbled across her, does give like good context for what she was doing. But it's like outside of that, you it's like you're kind of, I don't know, you're sort of, it's not giving like a ton necessarily. Like it's just kind of like, hey, this is what Syria was doing before, before. And sure, it's like, okay, she's she's like kind and she helps other people and stuff like that. And towards the end of the game, we do get a lot more with her, and her interactions with Geralt is absolutely important for the ending of the game, and just like, kind of wrapping up the story in general. But I do think they could have done a little bit more to integrate her in the story, and I don't know, just kind of like strengthen her relationship with Geralt, where you're like, oh, she is like kind of his, his daughter, not by blood relation, but by just the emotional ties of where he actually kind of raised her and everything, right? I think there could have been a little bit more there, that could have helped with that. I think in Heart of Stone, what really works is like you you're introduced to this Olgierd Van Everick character. You don't really, at the very beginning, you're like, all right, there's just this guy. Also, I recognized the voice actor sounded really familiar. I think he's also the voice actor who voiced Adam in Xenoblade 2. I'll need to confirm that, but the voice sounds really familiar to me. And I'm sure he's done other voice work in other games and other media as well. Anyways, you're introduced to him at the very beginning of this DLC, and you're kind of like, I don't really trust him. He hangs out with these weirdos. Like, it's like, what is this dude's deal? So it kind of presents this like mystery from the very beginning, and it's like, oh, this guy's also like immortal. Like, what is up with that? So it kind of already gives and sprinkles some mysteries of like, who is this guy? Why is he the way he is? Like, why does he hang out with these guys when it feels like he doesn't have a lot in common with them? And you're kind of presented that, and then you're sort of whisked away on this adventure where you're like, you're stuck on a ship and you have to fight off your captives, and then afterwards you meet this guy, Master Mirror, who very briefly appears in the base game. And he did kind of leave like a bit of an impact. Like, I was like, this guy is very interesting. I remember at the very beginning of the game when you have like a conversation with him, it's just like the way he carries himself. It's like, he's like a traveler, like a merchant. He's like a guy with information, but he's also weird and kind of strange, and you can't quite put your finger on what exactly he is. And then you get to see more of him. He's kind of a primary character in this DLC, and he sort of is like this kind of like wish giver, but be careful what you wish for, because there's other consequences to those wishes, right? Like, it's never as it seems. And he's kind of this, kind of a, I don't know, he's almost like a genie or a djinn, but just different, you know what I mean? And I think the dynamic between him, Geralt, and Olgierd, I think, is really good. Like, there's a lot of symbolism between their sort of like characters, of like, you have Olgierd, who is like the affected person. You have Master Mirror, who's like the guy who initially presents this, presents like an offer that you can't refuse. And then you have Geralt, who's kind of the third person character as you, who is trying to kind of resolve this situation. He's also kind of he acts as a bit of a liaison between Master Mirror and Von Everick, where he has to kind of be the one to complete various tasks, which, kind of ensues the adventure that you're kind of gone on. So like the symbolism of like the three characters that are kind of involved in this situation, where there's like certain things that are like reflected amongst them all. The fact that like Von Everett, has like a heart of stone. Geralt is a character who doesn't really show a lot of emotion, but he still has his emotional depth. Like, it's just not super present in a lot of situations. So there's kind of that dichotomy there. You have Master Mirror, who likes to kind of play games, and Von Everett also likes to play games with other people. Like, there's just kind of like this, there's both like a cat and mouse kind of thing going on, where Geralt is kind of used as a tool in a lot of instances by both of these characters, but ultimately he has to be the one to resolve the issue between all three of them, right? And I thought it was just really just like the dynamics of all three of these characters, I thought was just really well done. Where you're just like trying to like play off of each other, like, one is trying to one up the other. Like, it's just good. It's really well done. And I just was like, I don't know. I was just like, this is just so, one, it's really fun. Like I especially enjoyed, I loved the sequence, and I might have mentioned this last time, but I love the sequence where you go to an auction first because you have to like get something for Von Everett. And the first time you go to the auction, you find out that it's not actually available at the auction itself. So you have to like plan a heist to try to get it. And it just is like a straight up heist movie where you get all of these like members to band together, and there's like a heist plan, and obviously it goes wrong because of course it does. And then you have to kind of work your way around the situation. It's just like all of these different scenarios are so fun and so interesting, but they all kind of lend itself to the rest of the plot. There's levels of significance, and you're learning more about the characters even while you're doing these like various missions and that kind of thing. There's like a wedding where you're possessed by a ghost. There's so much fun stuff in this, and I think it was just so well realized. I think like it's like it really feels like after the base game they took a lot of ideas, because there's a lot of really there's a lot of great set pieces in the base game as well, but they took a lot of those and just like put it all together in this DLC, where there's just like there's no, it just is like clean. Like maybe there's like some fetch quests that are a little slow and that kind of thing, but if you really just focus on like the main kind of through line, the main story of the DLC, it's just like this, like it's a blast. It's an adventure. There's just all of these different pieces coming together. The main kind of thematic element of like, be careful what you wish for, be grateful what you have, a lot of those kinds of things. Like it's I don't know, it's really, and there's of course there's other themes as well. There's other thematic elements, where just like discussing how you handle grief, how you handle relationships, the fact that relationships shouldn't maybe shouldn't be considered as like a transactional thing versus as an actual partnership between two people. Like there's like different elements to it. Also there's kind of like the realization of like figuring out like what that there is no like this, there's not like this ultimatum that's gonna like fix everything, is just so, it's just so good. It's so well done. And honestly, I wouldn't mind like playing this again in the future, because I thought it's just a really great time. Maybe I'll replay this whole game sometime later down the line, but it's really kind of with this Heart of Stone DLC, and then we'll see how I feel about the Blood and Wine DLC, but it's really shaping up to me where The Witcher 3 is becoming one of my favorite games. I've been meaning to play this game for the longest time, but I just never got around to it. And then the fact that it wasn't on, Switch consoles until I think until for a little while. I forgot when they ported this game, but it took some time. And now the fact that I was able to kind of finally get to it, play through the base game, play through the first DLC, I'm really just like, I'm enthralled by the world. I really enjoy the characters. I love the dialogue. It's super just like interesting and well written. It kind of has me thinking about maybe like getting into the books. Like, I thought about reading them honestly prior to like playing this, but again, that was like another thing I just never got around to. But it does have me interested. Like, if the writing is anything like it in the games as it is in the books, I think I would enjoy it quite a bit. There's just kind of this level, there's like, there's like dark humor, there's like this sense of just like dark fantasy elements and that kind of thing. And it just really works well for me and kind of my tastes. And it explores different themes with each kind of storyline. There's always something that you can kind of take away from, various quests and that kind of stuff. So it's really good. And so I just kind of I'm just continuing to just like praise and give heaps of praise on this game. And next up is going to be Blood and Wine. I'm just going to probably continue to play through that, and who knows where else. It's kind of having me excited for Witcher 4, really. I don't know when that's going to come out. Like, there's been no updates for that, but I can wait. I can patiently wait for that. I'm sure other people have been waiting for much longer for Witcher 4, because like, when did The Witcher 3 came out? Like in 2017, I think 2016, 17, around that time, maybe even later than that or before that. So yeah, we're going to be going for quite some time since a sequel has come out. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think, I'll just continue to play through that, and we'll see kind of where things go, based on my experience with the second DLC. Just a quick update, some basketball update before I wrap up for today. So it's been reported that last week the Warriors offered Jonathan Kuminga a qualifying offer for 3 years or something like that. And there still seems to be a bit of a stalemate between Kuminga's camp, his agent, and the Warriors front office. And I think as Warriors fans, we're just sick of this thing. I just don't know, I think the hopes are that he signs, Warriors have the option to trade him, right? Because if they have that kind of like option available as a part of the deal, I just am like, can we just move on, please? He's not going to be a part of the team. It's not going to work out. There's already just bad, it's just not good. This is bad vibes, bad blood, whatever. It's not like serious, but it's over. Like, the relationship between, Kuminga and the Warriors is over. And if there's just any way, like, I understand money is like a whole thing, and I totally get that. Cap space, whatever. But at this point, it would be, it's just not going to work. And it would just be best for everybody to accept that. I don't know what the result of it is going to be, but just, is he going to be on the team next season? If he is, it's not going to be long. There's just got to be a way to move off of that. If you're Kuminga, you're taking the deal regardless, right? I think it was like 25 per year. Where are you going to get that from any other team in the NBA? Like, that's just not there's not like a good sense of his abilities. Like he's clearly like super athletic, and he has the ability to be a good player, but what is his ceiling? Does he have the ability to work well in a different scheme or a different system? Like it's clear that it hasn't worked out well within the Kerr system. We all know that. But what is it going to look like for him on another team? Like we have no idea. But the fact that the Warriors are offering him even anything is some, like dude, you got to take that. I don't even know what you're not going to get that from a team. I don't know. Like there was speculation about like the Kings maybe offering a contract, but like even then, it's like I just don't. I don't know. There's like teams that are desperate. The Kings might be one of them. So maybe let them do the honors, but I just am. Yeah, I mean I've been saying the same thing every time there's like a Kuminga update. It's the same conversation. Like it's just so. I want there to be like actual news at this point, and yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Until we get like a final decision of sorts, this thing is just gonna be like a stalemate, and it's just gonna piss me off until the bitter end. So, but yeah, quick little update there. Season starts in like a month, which is crazy. Basketball starts up in a few weeks with the preseason. Yeah, I mean things move quickly. So we'll be right there at the beginning of the NBA season before we know it. But yeah, that's gonna do it for now. I may record something later this week. I'll see how things shape up. But yeah, that's gonna do it for now. All right, it is Wednesday, September 17th. Just a little catch-up day today. Probably gonna be a bit of a shorter recording, but I just wanted to talk about some stuff, talk about things that I'm looking forward to, as well as some other thoughts, some other ideas that I've kind of had over the course of the last couple of days. We're kind of like in the midst of a hurricane season around here. So the weather is kind of funky. It's been like humid and warm, and kind of cloudy. There's a little bit of rain, I think, yesterday or on Monday. So we've kind of had a little bit of that experience, which is kind of strange, but yeah, it's just going through the motions, I would say. I have sort of continued going into Blood and Wine, not super lengthy sessions necessarily, but I would say earlier, either on Monday, on Monday, I played a little bit more of it, and it seems to be pretty expansive. There's a ton of stuff to do in Tulane, which is the area that the DLC takes place, and it's like, dang, okay, this is just like it's like a whole new game, honestly, like a whole just a brand new campaign. It really feels that way, and very intriguing. We're already kind of led to some mysteries. Basically, you're like hunting down this beast / killer that's just been going around and killing people in like a very specific kind of way, and you're trying to kind of like solve what the potential motive for this murder is and everything like that. So very interesting, and I like, I mean, the music, the score just in general for the entire Witcher game has been fantastic, but I've been really enjoying the music for this DLC in particular, just because of I feel like it complements very well kind of the aesthetic of the aesthetic of the game, where it feels a lot more fantastical. It kind of relies on sort of like a choir. There's a bit of a choir support going on with some of the pieces. So that's been really nice. The landscape, the environment is beautiful. It's so different from kind of the harshness of Velen and Skellige. I really like that contrast, right? Like, this is really like you're stepping into one of those, winery kind of like paintings. And there is like this kind of heavy emphasis of how wine is very much a part of this Toussaint culture. And I think that's it's very interesting. I'm curious to see kind of where that theme leads and how that sort of is interconnected with the larger scope of the story that's being presented, right? How significant is wine as a cultural piece to these people. The DLC is called Blood and Wine, right? So there's definitely, you can definitely infer some things just based on the title alone, but I'm sure there's more things to it. How wine is kind of presented as, a type as a, if you look at it through Christian terms, right? It's like the body of Christ. I don't know if that's what they're going for in terms of the story, but there is like this like heavy emphasis of wine and wine culture being very important to this land of Toussaint. So I'm interested to kind of see how that's sort of integrated into the major story and the themes and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm at the very beginning portion, and I'm just dipping my toes in there. I really haven't done too much else, but yeah, I really, it's very intriguing so far. The one I would say this is less of a critique on the quality of like the story or the writing or anything. More of a this might just be like due to the Switch versions limitations, but there is like a lot of this kind of like glow, a lot of this a lot of bloom going on, it feels like, in this DLC in particular. So when you're playing as Geralt and you're kind of running into the wider world, the wider sort of areas, and you're kind of moving around the cameras, there is kind of this like blur kind of thing going on. I don't know if that's what it looked like originally with the original release, or if it looks better in other versions of the game, but I have noticed it more with the version that I'm playing, where it is a little, it's like you don't really want to move the camera around too much because it gets a little dizzying in some ways. I don't know if that was kind of the direction that they were going for, where they were presenting this area to be kind of like a painting, and so everything was kind of like a blend of colors or whatever. Maybe that might be an effect of it. But yeah, that's like my one minor complaint is it most likely is just due to the hardware / software limitations of the game and where I'm playing it. So other than that, I'm not really super. I don't have too many other qualms necessarily. It's much more based on just kind of the presentation as opposed to anything else. It still runs fine. I haven't run into any issues with performance, but I think it's just more of like a visual presentation that I think is a little hindered, I think. But yeah, other than that, I think I would like to kind of continue to work my way through it when I have some time. but it's just like a whole nother journey. It's been like this game in particular has really kind of, especially the way in which the dialogue is written and the way in which like conversations kind of, how they sort of evolve from a certain point. It's got me really interested in reading slash like getting into the original novels created by the author Andrei Sapkowski, I think is how you pronounce his name. Let me see if I can get that right. Andrei Sapkowski, Polish writer. And I've heard great things about the books as well. And I think I was sort of thinking about getting into it. I remember I did see one of the books at a library, and I kind of just read some excerpts of it. And the writing style is very interesting. I think so I started listening to the audiobook of The Last Wish, which is like technically the first kind of chronologically, the first book in the series chronologically. And you see, obviously, I'm sure, he's directly involved with the writing in the game and everything. But you do see kind of the influence of which he writes the dialogue for the characters, in which they sort of, they go through, they have these like long kind of stories, right? Like every character has like a way of telling a story. They go into detail about the events that took place. You can kind of gain some insight into this character's thoughts, just kind of based on their kind of like monologue slash dialogue. I think it's an interesting writing style. I do think, some of it might be is flowery, and I think there is definitely, you can absolutely find beauty in kind of the prose and everything. I do think sometimes the writing gets a bit too wordy, where it's one of those things where like few things can better describe something as opposed to lengthening the paragraph. So but that is just his particular writing style, right? Like, but I think it just kind of, he does like a good job of being able to convey what the character is like, based on the way that they talk, the way they just continue to just sort of go off on this story. It's like while you're able to kind of already grasp what is happening, like some of the finer details and the way in which characters reveal certain plot threads kind of give a sense of that particular character's traits and what their values are and kind of how they stand on a particular issue. And so I think it's interesting how that sort of is laid out. I think I've gotten somewhat, I started listening to like some audiobooks here and there recently, so this might be like kind of perfect for that. Of course I want to get back into, reading like properly, but I mean, if this is like another way of going about it, then yeah, I mean, what's nothing wrong with that. I love listening to like podcasts. So if I'm into that type of medium, it's like, why not try out some more like audiobooks and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like kind of, I'm really trying to, I'm really wanting to kind of explore more of, the world and the story, and just kind of the world of The Witcher, and just kind of get a sense of, how things maybe ended up the way they did leading into The Witcher 3, and, what it might look like afterwards as well, right? I don't know what I have no idea where the stories in the book end up, but I guess I'll find out when I get there. Other stuff. So I pre-ordered Trails in the Sky first chapter, and that's going to be coming, it's going to be arriving next Monday. So that's exciting. I will I won't start the game. Well, technically, I already have started the game because I played the demo. But yeah, as I'm still playing through The Witcher, I won't like fully dive into it. But I am probably gonna like check out the settings and see just the ability to transfer the game over from the demo and my save data over from the demo to the base game. So that's something I'm going to check out. I'm also going to see the Switch 2 upgrade, which I think is sort of like an added piece. And I'll definitely play with like the higher resolution and higher performance and everything like that. So that's kind of exciting. But yeah, I committed to it. I'm gonna play the first Trails game, and I think I might have mentioned this on Monday, but it does seem like they're already preparing to, or if they haven't already, create a develop a remake for the second game in the series, Trails in the Sky, second chapter. So that's great news. I mean, again, one of those things where I would be fine if I really enjoyed this game and I wanted to kind of dive into the rest of the series. I have options, right? I have the option of playing the games on my laptop, on PC, but preferably, yeah, again, console gamer. So that's kind of the way that I want to go about it. But yeah, I'm really excited. This is going to be kind of like another fresh look at a series that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I've heard great things about. It's one, I think when it comes to, and this was something I expressed a little while back, when I was talking about both, these like super long series like Trails and One Piece, where there is this kind of hesitation I have. Like, I've heard so many good things about the respective kind of series and their mediums, but I just am like, dude, am I going to spend all of my time watching One Piece, or am I going to be, doing other stuff? I think there is this sort of like fear of this kind of time commitment. In the case of Trails, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little bit more palatable because there's, right now, I mean, there's 10 games in the series, it's still a lot, but I feel more confident being able to kind of get through those as opposed to getting through One Piece. It just feels kind of almost insurmountable in a lot of ways. It just is like not, I don't know. It's one of those things that's like, am I ever going to watch One Piece? I have no idea. That's going to be kind of like a lingering question throughout my life. It's like, it's considered, it's like if I enjoy anime, it's like, am I going to enjoy One Piece? Probably, but am I willing to kind of commit to that? With Trails, I feel more confident being able to commit to it because I have kind of an in. I know where to start, and I feel comfortable taking my time with it. And I don't think it would be that much of an issue if I would be okay if I didn't play through the whole thing, because there are stories that are already kind of finished throughout, each kind of arc, if you want to call it that. So like the first 3 games is its own sort of like trilogy, quote unquote, and the next games are its own trilogy, and then you got like Cold Steel and then the other games. So there are like parts of the story where it is sort of self-contained in some ways. Of course, there's, based on my understanding, you gain a better appreciation for the series as you move forward because there's more interconnectedness and everything. But I feel pretty confident, like, hey, if I at least play the first like couple of games, I'll have like a complete story. You know what I mean? I'll get I get like a complete arc with these characters. So it's not like I I don't know, it doesn't feel as much of a time commitment to me as opposed to One Piece, where it feels like if you want to truly enjoy the series, you have to go through, you know, most of the anime, and it's like I just don't have the time for that. You know what I mean? I can find the time, but do I want to commit to that? I don't know. It's a lot. It's the same way I feel about just other longer series in general. I'm sure I've mentioned this in the past, but I started the Wire way back. I watched the first 2 episodes, but that show is like 7-8 seasons long. Every episode is like an hour long, and it just is like that's a whole thing. You know what I mean? And as much as I would, you know, I'm sure I would enjoy that show. It's just not something that I want to, you know, prioritize. So I feel, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to reason with myself, like why I'm okay with getting into Trails. One, I think just the video game aspect of it is a huge factor for me, right? I tend to, nowadays at least, I tend to enjoy that more interactive medium as opposed to anime. And I'm not saying that either is worse or better. That's just kind of my preference right now. I'm sure my tastes will change as I continue to get older, but I do prefer being able to kind of experience the story through the lens of the characters and being able to play with them and the other interactive aspects and gameplays that come with a video game. So that's kind of maybe where Trails gets a bit of a leg up in comparison to One Piece for something that I want to engage with at this time, right? So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's kind of what my thought process is. It's just like I want to play the series, and I've been wanting to play the series. So the fact that, you know, now it's like a brand new remake is available for Switch and Switch 2, it's like, yeah, why not? Like, I'm absolutely going to hop on. And early reviews, which have come out today, seem to indicate that it's pretty damn good. Really positive kind of acclaim and reviews so far. So yeah, I feel pretty good. I mean, the demo hooked me. The gameplay, especially, like the music, it's just like it was so fun to play. Like, I can't wait to dive back into that once I finish the, you know, Blood and Wine DLC. But it's just, yeah, I feel pretty good about that, and I'm excited to get into that in the near future. Anyways, just wanted to catch up on a few things, give some thoughts. Mostly just wanted to talk more Trails stuff, because it's gonna be the next thing. You know, it's gonna be the next thing, and I'm excited to talk about more about that game, more about just kind of like the themes and stuff, more about the story, and that is sort of like next on my to-do list of wants of games that I kind of want to analyze as I play along. So just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. As always, this has been Save the Semantics, signing off.